Welcome back to Business Week here on Arise News. And today we're talking about a very interesting topic, beyond borders, scaling strategy and innovation across Africa. From Uber to fintech, telco to transport and financial services, our next guest has been at the forefront of Africa's digital transformation. She's a strategist, operator and cross-border advisor with a unique lens on Francophone Africa's rapidly evolving innovation landscape. Fresh from the Moonshot Technology Conference in Lagos, please welcome Haitian Ivorian Marjorie, founder and CEO of Yari Consultancy Group and Fanga. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. So, it was interesting because listening to your panel at Moonshot, we talked about the dynamic between Francophone and Anglophone Africa. What do you think Anglophone investors coming from like Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, still get wrong about doing business in your region? Yeah.
Love this question. I often say that what the key thing is that Africa or Francophone Africa is not behind. It's just wired differently. And I think the key thing is to understand that in Francophone Africa, business is done by relationship building. Government is often a partner and beyond just a regulator. And trust is your main currency. And the challenge that I'm seeing from Anglophone investors, they come in with a playbook that may have worked in Nairobi or in Lagos, and they want to copy and paste. And unfortunately, that doesn't work. Right, so I think it's just trying to understand those key languages by which we do business and knowing how to translate, create and translate and adapt to our local context. And when the local context is integrated and there's capital, I've seen magic.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Really magic and scalability.
Yeah. I mean, you do a lot of advisory work, and I think you've probably had a lot of successes and maybe challenges.
Yes.
So based on some of the markets you've done business in, what are some of the nuances you're seeing that have led to success in some of those markets? Maybe one or two examples of the themes that have really helped propel investments.
I think one of the key things, again, I love saying that it's important to read your market, right? You may have a product that has scaled and worked elsewhere in different dynamics, but once you come in somewhere, it's not about just entering the market. It's about how do you stay and engage and build trust in that market. And that comes first by spending time with your users, understanding the dynamics of the market, and having the willingness to have the right partnerships in place, to build the right teams in place that can both understand your initial business or strategy, but also that get the market and that can create that bridge between both the product and your strategy and the market. And this is where I think that people don't invest sufficient time in building that understanding so that they can really capitalize on the return on investment over time, right? They much rather go quickly and then you waste quite a bit of capital. So if I think about a couple of examples, I've seen businesses come into, for example, Dakar, and not understanding that you win with patience, right? And
what is it about the Dakar market that means you have to win with patience? What is it about Senegal?
Because being rapid and quick to action might actually feel aggressive,
right?
And for the user not being felt like they're being listened. So being patient allows you to go with their rhythm and gain trust because you're putting yourself, you have the right empathy and putting yourself in their shoes, right? I think in Côte d'Ivoire is a place where it's very tough to do business if you don't have a personal relationship. Because it is personal. Before people sign big checks to you, they need to know who you are. They need to know how you behave, what are your values. And if you don't embrace that, then you don't do sustainable business.
Speaking of Côte d'Ivoire, it's a market I've always been fascinated with. My last trip there was to the Africa Development Bank annual meetings. And, people often talk about the regulatory environment, how there's so many nuances and differences. What sort of sectors are really evolving now in those markets, particularly in the area of innovation? And what are the regulatory trends or issues that investors or operators have to sort of overcome? Top 2 or 3 issues that you really have to work on navigating around.
I think operational operational systems are key. So when you're talking about operational systems or infrastructures, first thing thinking is payments. Payment is key because it's an integrated region with one central bank, one currency. It is true that in the fintechs in the region will smile and say, well, you still need to apply in each and every single country in which you operate in West Africa. But fundamentally speaking, it's the same framework. And that's important to integrate that. I think we're moving into a much more integrated way of doing business. So the central bank launched a unique platform allowing you to move money from wallets to bank accounts in every single country in the region.
That's in the West Africa Economic Monitoring.
Exactly. So for me, like, we need to understand that we're moving into integration, and there's still lots of work to be done, particularly as you're thinking about moving goods, but people can move all the way through the region, and now money can actually be moved across the region. So the next step is goods being able to go across the different borders with a lot less challenges that we're seeing today.
And you know, that's really interesting because during my last trip there, in terms of trying to pay some vendors, like sort of the car hire company, I couldn't do it. Whereas maybe if I come from Burkina Faso or Senegal, but because I was coming from Nigeria and the rest of the Francophone region was integrated on that payment system, it was hard for me to make the payment from a Nigerian source on my mobile phone. So you have this sort of hubs, silos of integration within the region, but you still have players like Nigeria and Ghana in their Anglophone space who are outside of that. So we also need to do a better job of integrating within integration, right?
I completely agree. We need to start building bridges. I think the next step right now is building bridges between Anglophone and Francophone markets, particularly in West Africa. There's no reason why we should move that way.
I know one of the issues you're really passionate about is inclusion in the digital space. So through the work you do, what are some of the big things we need to be focusing now on in terms of inclusion, and maybe not even just from a gender perspective?
You know, inclusion, I always say it's not a morale goal. If you want to do business at scale in Africa, it's a key economic factor and trigger. You're not going to build a business on the top 10% of the continent. It's the one that are, sitting in the markets, the gig workers, the everyday entrepreneurs that are moving goods and services that are supporting and sustaining our system. It's unfortunate that they're not included inside of those major systems. So I think inclusion for me, let's not even talk about gender, it's just the basics of doing business, sustainable business in Africa, is to find ways to build products and services that make sure that every single one of these entrepreneurs, everyday entrepreneurs, feel recognized, or that they're yet invisible to the regular system, but now they become visible through your products and services. And that's doing business.
And so what would you love to see really change in the tech ecosystem broadly? There were lots of conversations that were had at Moonshot during the week. It was fascinating. There was a whole swarm of Gen Zs like I'd never seen in my entire life, and I was just blown away by the level of innovation. You had the big unicorns like your Flutter Waves and co, and you had the smaller up and coming startups. What are the big things that excite you in Africa's tech ecosystem right now?
Well, I think they finally realized that inclusion is no longer inclusion, it's just doing business. And it's very different than what you were seeing 5, 6, 7 years ago on the continent and in the different discussions. I've actually faced various challenges in trying to build products that adapt to include most, because people would say to me, well, we know that they're left out of the system, but still try to build and scale. The truth is, people are now understanding, whether it's the licorns or the unicorns or whether it's the small startups, that you need to build for the lady in the market. You need to build for gig workers. It's no longer idealistic. It's the basic of innovation today, and that's wonderful to see that.
Thank you. I know payments and fintech was all the rage, but any other subsectors within tech that are interesting to
Loads of them. Because once we say this now, it's affordable energy. It's commerce for everyone. It's health tech. It's head tech. I think I'm super excited to see what's going to be happening in health tech and how it's going to actually start including much more people in the rural areas to get access to true medical services. So I think there's a lot of things that we can leverage. So inclusion goes beyond payments. It's access. It's removing the barriers to basic services and products.
Yeah, interesting. So, from your perspective, you know, you transitioned from working in multinational corporates.
Yes.
You've done mobility in
Yes.
Uber.
Yes.
You've done banking.
Yes.
Now you're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
What were some of the main mindset shifts that you had to make, especially on the continent, right?
Yes, yes.
During that transition, and what can we learn? What lessons can we learn from that?
Honestly, when you work in the corporate world, you know, you don't ask many questions, right? You get up, you may have the opportunity to help build a strategy, but generally you have a vision that's already built for you, and you're executing, and you have to learn how to execute well. Budgets are clear, visions are clear, values are set for you, and there's a sense of security in that. But what I'm loving about being an entrepreneur is that blank page that I'm waking up with, and to be honest, it's a bit scary at the same time, right? Because you have to fill out that blank page yourself, and if you don't, it's there on a daily basis. The beauty of it also is that I get to build my own vision. I get to build my own strategy, align with my values and align with how I'm reading the market. And for nothing, I would change that. And I think in terms of the learnings, is I should have done this a long time ago. Right?
Right.
I should have done this a long time ago. I think there's so many opportunities on the continent in tech. The positioning that I found, for my own business with Yahe, it's really to help building and scaling with soul, with the right empathy to read the markets, to create those bridges between Francophones and Anglophones, to create those bridges between the ones that are not included, and for them to be included in the broader economy, right?
Fantastic.
And that's powerful.
Okay, so I want to put you on the spot. If you were going to give me the top 2 or 3 markets to watch on the continent, sub-Saharan Africa, over the next year into 2026, what would they be? And give me a why for your number 1 pick.
Well, I'll be biased. I'll say Côte d'Ivoire. Why is one of the fastest growing economy in the world, and it's been stable in its growth. It's amazing to see the different communities joining and building together. It's super interesting. I think the second market that's super interesting is Benin.
That's Nigeria's neighbor.
That's Nigeria's neighbor.
Yeah.
And I think for Benin to be next to Nigeria, they don't actually need to look at any other markets.
Right.
Build for Nigeria.
Interesting.
It's the biggest market
Fantastic.
in the region. So top 2 in Francophone. Rwanda is very interesting. Bilingual, they're already creating the bridge.
Okay, fantastic. So great to speak to you, Marjorie.
It was a pleasure.
Glad we could have this conversation.
Thank you very much
joining
for
us.
having me.
Thank you.